The Anti-Corruption Foundation has placed a Russia without Putin billboard in the country, calling on Russians to join the anti-Putin campaign. On the banner, which was hung in Moscow and St. Petersburg, there's a QR code which leads to the website of the foundation, Russia Without Putin. As part of the campaign, every citizen must convince at least 10 people to vote against Putin in the next 100 days. Leaflets, graffiti, posters and stickers will be published on the website. The foundation predicts that the facts about Putin pardoning criminals who return from the war against Ukraine will influence the opinion of voters.
Even the most ardent supporters of Putin will not answer the questions. How is it that a criminal, pardoned by Putin personally, who had to spend decades in prison, goes out and commits sexual assaults? How is it that mobilized soldiers do not return from the front? How can Putin answer why prices are rising?
Analysts call the presidential direct line, which will take place on December the 14th, the beginning of Putin's election campaign. Most Russians are interested in the progress of the war against Ukraine. Sociologists from the Levada Center have found that the question of when the war will end is the most popular. 21% of Russians surveyed are ready to ask it, and it is this question that most irritates the Kremlin authorities.
Russians no longer expect news from Putin about a possible improvement in their standard of living. 8% would ask about pensions and their increase. 8% would ask about medicine, education and social programs. 7% about salaries and living standards in general. 6% would try to find out when Putin will leave. Questions about migration and corruption are of concern to 2% of respondents. 10% are not interested in Putin's speech and his answers at all. From the message of the Telegram channel, we can explain.
Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War are confident that Russians are increasingly supporting the withdrawal of troops from Ukraine. More than half of respondents believe that Moscow should begin peace negotiations on Kyiv's terms.
When Levada Center asked the question, imagine that Putin will return the occupied territories to Ukraine. Will you approve it or not? Immediately, about 35% said they would agree with this option.
As in previous elections, Russians will be deprived of video surveillance of the presidential election in 2024. Broadcasts from cameras in territorial election commissions will be turned on only during the counting of votes at the end of the three-day vote, said Nikolai Bulaev, deputy chairman of the Russian Central Election Commission.
At the same time, election commissions, representatives of registered candidates and parties that nominated registered candidates, observers from civic chambers, human rights commissioners, representatives of the Human Rights Council and technical operators will have access to the broadcast. Video recordings from the presidential elections will be stored for at least a year from the date of official publication of the results. From an article by the Moscow Times.
In Russia's authoritarian political system, Putin always wins elections by a wide margin. Now anti-war sentiment is growing in Russian society, and at the same time, tension in anticipation of a new wave of mobilization. However, experts note that the dictator will most likely give the order to begin it after he secures his fifth term as president. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.